Listen closely. Come a little closer to the screen, friend. I'm going to tell you something that goes against everything your mama, your teacher, and the folks on the TV ever told you. They told you that being alone is the worst thing that can happen to a human soul. They said it's sad. They said it's for the broken. But I'm here to tell you, living alone didn't just change me, it saved my life. And nobody, not a single soul, warned me about how good it was going to be. Now, before I tell you the rest, do yourself a favor. If you're tired of the noise, if you're tired of pretending to be someone you aren't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Join me on the porch here. We've got some hard truths to spill, and I don't want you missing a single word of it. All right, let's go back, way back. I used to be terrified of an empty room, truly terrified. I thought if there wasn't a voice bouncing off the walls, or a TV blaring in the corner, or a warm body next to me, then I didn't exist. I was just a ghost in my own house. I filled my life with people, loud people, quiet people, good people, bad people. It didn't matter as long as the air was moving, I felt safe, or at least I thought I was safe. See, we are trained like dogs to seek the pack. From the time you're in diapers, you're told to share, you're told to play nice, you're told to get married, have kids, join the club, go to the party. They tell you that a full house is a happy house. But let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a room full of people and felt cold? I mean, bone deep cold. I have. I remember a Tuesday, just a regular Tuesday. I was 50 years old. I had the house full of folks. I had the buddies coming over for the game. I had the job where I talked to 50 people a day. My life was loud. My life was full. And I walked into my bathroom, locked the door, looked in the mirror, and I didn't know who was looking back. I saw a stranger. I saw a man who had spent 50 years reacting to everyone else, fixing everyone else's problems, laughing at jokes that weren't funny just to keep the peace. I was drowning, and the water wasn't a liquid. The water was people. I walked out of that bathroom and I made a choice. It was a hard choice. Some folks called it a selfish choice. I moved out. I got a small place, a tiny place, really, just enough for a bed, a chair, and a coffee pot. The first night there, oh boy, that first night was the scariest night of my life. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It sat on my chest like an elephant. I kept waiting for a door to slam. I kept waiting for someone to ask me what's for dinner. I kept waiting for the phone to ring, but it didn't. And that's when the panic set in. I thought, oh no, I've made a mistake. I'm going to rot here and nobody will find me for weeks. That's the fear they plant in you. That's the lie. But then the sun came up, and for the first time in 50 years, I drank a cup of coffee exactly the way I liked it without asking anyone if the pot was empty. I sat in a chair and looked out the window for an hour, and nobody asked me what I was thinking. Nobody asked me to fix the sink. Nobody asked me to be anything other than a man sitting in a chair. And I took a breath, a real breath, and I realized something that hit me like a freight train. I wasn't lonely. I was free. But see, that was just the beginning. I didn't know the dangers I had just escaped. I didn't know that the noise had been hiding the truth from me. Living alone wasn't just about peace and quiet. It was about survival. Because when you strip away the voices of everyone else, you finally hear the only voice that actually matters, your own. And my voice had a lot of warnings to give me that I had been too deaf to hear. You see, nobody warns you about the performance. That's what I call it now. When you live with people, a wife, a husband, kids, roommates, you are always on stage. Even when you're sleeping, you're worrying if you're snoring too loud, and you are always shrinking yourself just a little bit to make room for someone else. When I closed that door and locked it that first week, I felt something strange happen to my face. My jaw unclenched, my shoulders dropped about 3 inches. I didn't have to smile if I wasn't happy. I didn't have to frown to show sympathy if I didn't care. I could just uh, be. I realized I had been tired for 30 years, not the kind of tired of nap fixes. I mean, soul tired. I spent the first month of living alone, just sleeping. I'd wake up, look at the wall, eat a piece of toast, and go right back to sleep. And you know what? Nobody judged me. Nobody said, hey, old man, you're wasting the day. That silence, I was so afraid of it, it started to heal me. See, the doctors have been telling me for years that my heart was ticking too fast. My blood pressure was through the roof. They gave me pills. They told me to cut the salt. They told me to exercise, but none of it worked. Why? Because I was living in a pressure cooker of other people's expectations. 6 months after I moved out, I went back to the doctor. He looked at my chart. Then he looked at me. He took his glasses off and cleaned them, thinking he was seeing things wrong. He said, what did you do? Did you go vegan? Did you start running marathons? I laughed. I said, no, doc, I just started minding my own business. My numbers were perfect. The stress that was slowly killing me, the stress that was tightening my chest every time I walked through my old front door, it was gone. That's when I knew living alone had literally saved my life. If I had stayed in that noise, if I had stayed in that house trying to please everyone else, my heart would have popped like a cheap balloon. But here is the kicker, and this is the part you need to really hear. This is the trap. When you start to get healthy, when you start to get happy all by yourself, people get angry. They get offended. They looked at me and said, oh, you're isolating yourself. You're becoming a hermit. It's not natural. They tried to pull me back in. They called me selfish. And for a minute, I almost believed them. I almost went back. I thought maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I was supposed to be miserable just so everyone else could be comfortable. But then I found the box. I was unpacking the last of my things in my little quiet apartment, and I found a box of old photos. I sat on the floor, cross-legged like a kid, and I looked at a picture of myself from 20 years ago. I looked at the man in the photo. He was surrounded by friends. He had a beer in his hand. He was laughing with his mouth open wide. But I looked at the eyes. The eyes were dead. The eyes were begging for a way out. And I realized that selfishness is just a word people use when you stop doing what they want you to do. I put the picture down and I spoke out loud to the empty room. I said, never again. But living alone isn't just about sleeping better and fixing your heart. That's the physical stuff. That's the easy stuff. The hard part, the part that really changes you, is what happens when the boredom sets in. Because eventually you catch up on your sleep. Eventually the house is clean, and then you have to face the monster. Do you want to know what the monster is? The monster is you. It's the stuff you push down deep inside yourself because you were too busy driving the kids to soccer practice or arguing about whose turn it is to wash the dishes. See, we use noise as a shield. We use busyness like a drug. As long as I was rushing around, as long as I was complaining about the noise, I didn't have to look at my own regrets. I didn't have to think about the dreams I gave up on 40 years ago. But in that quiet apartment, the regrets came out to play. They sat on the couch with me. They stared at me from the corner of the room. It was uncomfortable. It made my skin crawl. I wanted to turn on the radio just to drown them out. I wanted to call my ex-wife just to have an argument, just to feel something familiar. But I didn't. I sat there. I stared at a crack in the ceiling for 3 hours, and I let the bad thoughts come. I let them wash over me. And you know what? They didn't kill me. The monster roared, but it didn't bite. After the bad thoughts ran out of gas, something magical happened. Space opened up. For the first time in my life, I asked myself, what do I want to do right now? Not what I should do, not what I have to do. What do I want to do? I realized I didn't know my favorite color. I didn't know what food I actually liked because I had spent 30 years eating whatever everyone else wanted for dinner. So I started experimenting. I bought a cheap set of watercolors. I made a mess on the kitchen table. I looked at it and it was ugly and I laughed. I laughed so hard my belly shook. I was a grown man making ugly paintings in his underwear at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. And I felt joy, pure, unadulterated joy. I started reading books about history. I started walking in the park and actually looking at the trees instead of checking my watch. I found out I loved jazz music. I hated jazz when I was married because my wife hated it. But in my little room, I played it loud. I realized that boredom was just the wrapper that creativity comes in. You have to unwrap the boredom to get to the good stuff. Living alone gave me the time to date myself. I fell in love with my own life. I became my own best friend. And let me tell you, I am a pretty good guy to hang out with. But this new strength, this new happiness, it came with a price I wasn't expecting. It changed how I saw everyone else. And this is the part where it gets tricky. This is the part where you lose people. Because when you no longer need people to fill the silence, you stop tolerating their nonsense. You stop playing their games. And when you stop playing the game, the people who love the game get very, very nervous. I walked into a family gathering about a year after I moved out. I felt great. I was calm. I was happy. But as soon as I walked in, I saw it. I saw the strings. I saw the strings attached to everyone. I saw my brother-in-law boasting about his new car, desperate for someone to clap. I saw my niece pouting in the corner, waiting for someone to ask her what was wrong. I saw the passive-aggressive comments flying across the dinner table like little poisoned darts. Before I would have jumped right in, I would have clapped for the car, I would have coddled the niece, I would have thrown a dart back. But this time I just sat there. I ate my potato salad, and I watched. I realized I was watching a play, a bad play. and I didn't want to roll in it anymore. When my sister tried to gossip about the neighbors, something we used to do for hours, I just smiled and said, I hope they're doing okay. She looked at me like I had slapped her. The conversation died, the air got awkward, and that's when I learned the hardest lesson of living alone. Solitude raises your standards. When you are happy in your own company, other people have to compete with your peace. If you are going to come into my house, you better be more interesting than my silence. You better be kinder than my solitude. And let me tell you, most people, they don't make the cut. I started losing friends, not because I was mean, but because I stopped being the dumping ground for their emotional garbage. I stopped being the yes man. People drifted away. My phone stopped ringing as much. And for a second, the old fear came back. I'm going to end up alone. But then I remembered I am alone and I love it. The friends that stayed, the few that stuck around, they were the real ones. The ones who didn't need me to perform, the ones who could sit in a room with me and not say a word, and it wasn't awkward. It was beautiful. I traded 20 shallow friendships for 2 deep ones. And that is a trade I will make every single day of the week. Living alone taught me that loneliness and solitude are 2 different things. Loneliness is when you are missing something. Solitude is when you are finding yourself. Loneliness is a poverty of self. Solitude is a richness of self. But there is one final danger, one last trap that is waiting for you at the very end of this journey, and it's the one that almost sent me back to the hospital. It's the trap of comfort. You see, when your life gets too good, when your home becomes a perfect fortress of peace, you can start to fear the outside world again. You can become too soft. I almost became a prisoner of my own paradise. I built a castle. My apartment was perfect. It smelled like coffee and old books. The temperature was always 70 degrees. The music was always right. And I started to think, why go out there? Why go out into the heat and the noise and the crazy people? So I stopped this. I started ordering my groceries online. I stopped going to the park. I stopped visiting the 2 friends I had left. I thought I was winning. I thought I had beaten the system, but I wasn't winning. I was rotting. You see, a ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. A ship is built for the waves, is built for the storm. I realized that without the noise of the world, my silence wasn't special anymore. It was just empty. You need the bitter to taste the sweet. You need the chaos to appreciate the calm. If you hide away forever, you turn weird. You forget how to talk. You forget how to laugh. You become a ghost again, just a different kind of ghost than before. So I made a rule, and this is the rule that makes it all work. This is the secret sauce. Go out to get messy, come home to get clean. Now I go out every day. I talk to the rude cashier at the grocery store, and I smile at her. I sit in traffic and I let people honk. I go to the loud family reunions. I let the world beat me up a little bit. I participate in the mess of humanity. And then comes the best moment of the day, the moment that saves me over and over again. I walk up my steps. I put my key in the lock, click, that sound, that little mechanical click. That is the sound of freedom. I push the door open. I step inside and I close the world out. I take off my shoes. I sit in my chair and I feel my batteries recharge. I feel myself coming back to center. Living alone allows me to be a better person when I am with people. I have more patience now because I know I have an escape hatch. I can be kind to the angry neighbor because I know I don't have to live with him. I can love the world more because I don't have to carry the world on my back 24 hours a day. It saved my life because it gave me a sanctuary. It gave me a place where the only expectations are my own. So listen to me. If you are scared to make the jump, I get it. The rent is high, the nights are quiet, the shadows are long. But if you are sitting in a room full of people right now and you feel lonely, if you are staring at a TV screen trying to drown out the noise in your head, maybe it's time to pack a box. Maybe it's time to find a small room, a cheap chair, and a coffee pot. Maybe it's time to meet the most interesting person you will ever know, yourself. Don't let them scare you. The silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you felt that little tug in your chest, go ahead and click that like button for me. It helps more folks find this porch, and hit subscribe if you want to keep talking about the things nobody else wants to talk about. I'll see you next time. Enjoy the quiet.